worry, it's okay. These technicalities do happen as some gremlins make their way into the system. And of course, when we talk about gremlins, you talk about technology. When you talk about technology, you think about these robotics and the age of artificial intelligence. And then you think disruption. And then you're hit by a panic attack because you're not too sure where you fit in all of these conversations. Well, Afropolitans, today we speak to one such man who regards himself as a futurist and well-known author as well. I actually managed to speak to him earlier, or rather see him speak earlier today at the Forbes Africa Under 30 Meetup, which is a phenomenal engagement about ensuring that young Africans across the board are innovative, are sourcing solutions to Africa's challenges, and most importantly, tapping into themselves to remain relevant in a market which is ever-changing and evolving. Today, I'm joined in studio by a phenomenal guest, and that is John Sane, who joins us today, well-known futurist and phenomenal individual, and we'll get into your story. Welcome, John.
Thank you so much. You're very kind.
I describe you as a futurist, and throughout the whole show, I've been referring to your beautiful spectacles, or bones, or a glass bowl that you look into. But what is a futurist?
Well, I think there's many different types, and I think that everybody has their own flavor of being a futurist. My sort of total fascination is the actual crossroads between human psychology and the future. And I think that it's important for us to understand how we need to prepare for what's to come. I think just talking about what's to come is not good enough because it doesn't tell us how to prepare. And also just to be a motivational, inspirational, yes man sort of speaker also doesn't really combine the sort of behaviors that we need to have based on sort of what the future is going to be giving us over the next 5 to 10 years.
That's so critical that you mentioned that human psychology as well as change, right, in the future.
Future studies, yes.
Future change and future studies.
Yeah.
When it comes to human psychology, though, are we all the same? And I say this because your experience is that you work with a myriad of corporate clients, from manufacturing to agriculture to financial services and across the globe as well.
Yes.
Do we all think the same, despite our differences?
Well, I absolutely think we don't think the same, but it's not about the individual psychology. It's about the preparation for change. And all of us are going to be feeling a very, very different world over the next 10 years or so when we have the advent of free communication, free transportation, and free energy, which is in the next 10 to 15 years. What that does to our every touch point of our lives, it has a fundamental shift. So again, it's really about how are we on a daily basis, preparing ourselves, exposing ourselves, and looking out to become more optimistic about the future rather than becoming scared by it. You said it as you introduced me, you're scared. And the reason, and you're a smart, astute human being, and I was saying that to you off air, for you to be scared, which means that the majority of people are petrified. And the ailment, I mean, the sort of, the thing you need to do, the silver bullet, is to expose yourself every day for 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. Watch something about the future. Listen to a podcast about the future. Slowly make this language something you understand and become friendly with.
This is not something that you always thought of, right? 10 years ago, you didn't think that you'd be a futurist.
No, not at all. I mean, I never thought I'd write a book. I mean, it bewildered me how somebody would get 60,000 words into a book that had a storyline and a plot and a twist and really all came together. And I've just written my second book and I'm starting my third one. So no, not at all. Never thought this would happen. This is just something that's really kind of like popped up.
So let's get to understand you a little bit more and understand this journey to futurism. But you have a phenomenal background, such a colorful story to share. And I think it's just phenomenal for Afropolitans to hear this. But we mentioned your surname, John Sane, right?
Yes.
And it sounds quite interesting and not very familiar to the South African audience.
Yes.
You were telling me more about your heritage.
Well, my mom and dad are Iranian, or as I like to say, Persian, because Iran's got a different connotation in my mind. Persia's got more of a classic, romantic vibe. So my mom and dad became adventurous and came to Africa. I was born in Swaziland, and I've been African, really, been brought up in South Africa, Swaziland, and Venda. And now I live in Cape Town, between Cape Town and New York. So yeah, I think that the background adds to the sort of perspective that I have around the future. Having traveled a lot and being in Africa, that combination has made it quite powerful.
Exactly. I understand you're based in Manhattan, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, yes.
How are the
East
differences
Village,
exactly with regard to your experiences growing up throughout your whole life in the African continent and then traveling to this developed market and developed world where in many respects they are eons ahead of us?
Right. Well, I think they are in certain aspects, in many aspects, and in some aspects they're not. But also I think what we got to look at is the world itself is really divided into 3 mega markets. No matter what city you are around the world, you either have a mature awareness market, which is cities like San Francisco, San Diego, Berlin, Amsterdam, pockets of Cape Town, these cities around the world act very similarly.
Okay.
They're all underpinned by something called the guilt-free consumption. These cities all are into veganism and cycling and these sort of things. Then you get emerging cities in the world, Johannesburg, Dubai, Beijing, Kuala Lumpur. These are all underpinned by a megatrend called conspicuous consumption. They're emerging cities.
Yes.
So yes, Manhattan is very far away, but a lot of the habits and a lot of the behaviors are very similar to other parts of the world.
Other parts of the world, no doubt. But what I also want to hear from you is, with regard to what you do see, are there interesting nuances that you see on the African continent? Because so often we want to be like those cities that are leaps and bounds ahead. We want to compete with some of our peers in Cape Town. What is it that we are doing in order to get there, and are we preparing ourselves adequately enough?
What a great question. And it's something that's very close to my heart. And I can only share the experience because of myself and what happened to me.
Yeah.
I got a call about 5 years ago to get booked for my first international talk.
Okay.
I spent 30 seconds celebrating and 6 weeks being petrified. I mean, I thought to myself, what will I, a South African, tell anybody in Holland that they don't know? They're so smart there. I was the best speaker at the conference without any, like, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but really to prove the point that we suffer as Africans by thinking ourselves as Africans. We're not Africans, we're global citizens. And the mindset that puts us into the place of being a global citizen gives us access, proximity, energy, different focus point, different goals, different intentions. And this really changes everything. And what's happened to me and giving me the opportunity to now live a global life is to stop seeing myself as a South African, but more of a global citizen that happened to grow up in South Africa. Because you spend time with people in Sweden, you spend time with people in San Francisco, they're not San Franciscan, they're global. You know, I had a meeting with a guy in New York once, and I said to him, let's meet up. He says, I can only meet at 11. I said, no problem. He says, yeah, because I wake up at about 3 in the morning and I start having Skypes with all my officers around the country, around the world, and I finish at 10. So my day starts at 3 a.m. and goes to 10. That's normal.
Yeah.
They're global. We need to see ourselves as global.
It's so critical that you mention that, because in South Africa we also have this dependency on education. I don't know whether it's an exaggeration or perhaps something that we should continue bolstering. But let's take an MBA, for example. I don't have one, but my biggest ambition is to actually get an MBA soon. But the question is, given that you're mentioning this theme of becoming a global citizen, how relevant is it when sometimes our international peers who are leading giant entities don't actually have some of these educational
Well, I think South Africa sits in a position whereby we didn't have access to information before. You know, the masses didn't, and now all of a sudden you've got access to education. So obviously, it's something wonderful to go and get maybe the first child in your family that's actually had access to it, and I think it's something wonderful to celebrate and expose yourself to.
Sure, but will it make it as relevant in the future, though?
Well, and that's a hard question to answer. You see, I'm not an academic. And I was shocking at school and scraped my way through school and
But yet you're advising academics, isn't that so interesting?
But you see, my very good friend, Mark Sham, who never got a matric, advises huge companies on education. Never got a matric. And so the thing for me is there's two routes. Now, the route of education is not a bad one, but I think if you're out there and you're following your highest excitement and you're there with high levels of energy and you're going to make things happen, you're not going to take no for an answer, whether you got an MBA or not, doesn't matter. It's attitude. And what academic doesn't give you is attitude. And I think being on the street, and I'm saying street, I mean, obviously, not literally, it's that sort of energy that the world requires. That's what a global operator is, not taking no for an answer and just getting out there. And an MBA, I'm sure, will help. For me, my life process has been my MBA. I've made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, made a lot of money. So that in itself is sort of an MBA for me.
John, I'm nervous, I'm excited at the same time, because I'm thinking, my goodness, where am I going to be not only in 5 years' time, but perhaps 3, because that's how the world is changing, right? How, as South Africans, as Afropolitans, as global citizens, should we be taking this into account when it comes to thinking about the broader context of the world and what role and purpose we're going to serve?
Wonderful, great. I think there's 3 sections to this answer. One is, let's not forget that accomplishment doesn't equal purpose. Let's be very clear on that. And I think the world has created an environment that says if you're accomplished, if you have a degree and you're a partner at a big firm, well done. And you know what? Well done. You worked flipping hard. You were really into making sure you got that goal right, but you haven't reached your purpose. And that's a sad thing, because what we should be doing is first and foremost searching for our highest excitement, what shines brightest, and really following that track.
Yeah.
That's first. The second thing for me is that we need to be preparing for the future every day. It's not something you take on as a project. It's something you do every single day. And how we fit in is a combination of us following our highest excitement and doing it every day.
Yeah.
Then you'll figure out what you need to be in the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years. You might even figure out that what you're doing right now is boring as hell when you start following a different formula.
Clearly amazing insight and, of course, interactions that you've had with lots of executives and individuals from across the globe. Afropolitans, we're still in conversation with John Sane, fantastic speaker and, of course, futurist that has joined us here in studio, giving us some insight not only into some of his thought leadership, but, of course, ideals with regard to how best we can prepare ourselves for the future. You've written many books, John. You actually said you're working on your third, if I'm not mistaken,
that's
and
right.
the most popular one has been What's Your Moonshot?
That's right.
Your first book,
Yes.
which is actually critically acclaimed, and
Thank you.
you've received a lot of accolades for that.
Yes.
Given that you're such a strong influencer, you are someone who is regarded as a go-to individual to advise leaders of large corporate entities and otherwise, what actually keeps you awake at night? Do you ever get into a panic, like you said, with regard to making sure that you are giving these people the right advice, but not only that, that you yourself are still living towards your purpose?
Well, I'm very lucky. I sleep well every night. I've become very clear on making that
And
a
that
priority.
doesn't depend on where you are in the world, right?
Well,
And had
yeah,
some
well,
other
jet lag.
flights.
No. Jet lag. Can we take jet lag out that equation? For me, it's my highest excitement is consuming information and making that information interesting and story-like, to be able to give executives the courage and clarity to make new decisions. And the courage is always built with building a story that people can buy into. You were at my talk earlier,
Yeah.
and I gave a story. I mean, half of my talk was a story around the spice route.
Exactly.
And how the spice, and that story really lands for you to say, hang on a second, look, it's already happened. I need to act in a way that I don't get caught in exactly what I've just actually shown. So for me, I never have sleepless nights because I'm always 10 steps ahead because of just my massive need to consume, because I just love it so much.
For a young boy who had excitement when his mother bought him a yo-yo worth R2.25 back in the day, you've certainly come a long way.
Thank you.
You've inspired a lot of people who might be listening today, and they also want to move from not just being Afropolitans, but global citizens too. Give us some advice, share some insight as to how best to... I know you've given us a quick synopsis as to how to get there, but how do we move from the R2.25 yo-yo to being this phenomenal powerhouse that suffers from jet lag,
Yes.
but is traveling across the globe?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I think the thing that we all need to be focusing on in order to play that big is to set your GPS coordinates. And what I mean by that is, who do you really, in your wildest fantasy, want to be in 5 years? And work backwards from that. And so for me, I'll give you an example before I come back to me. I watched a video with The Rock about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how he's created this life that he has. He says he sat with his producers, his agents, and all these people around him 6 years ago and said, you all know Will Smith? I'm going to be bigger than Will Smith.
Oh.
He set his GPS coordinates. Look what he's done in the last 6 years. So for me, my GPS coordinates is to be the world's best at what I do. I want to be doing it at a global level on a massive scale. Where must I be? New York. Makes sense. How much money should I spend on my social media? A lot more than what other South African people in my position do, because my aspirations are bigger.
Exactly.
What are my patience levels like? Large. Because I've got this massive, big GPS goal that I'm working towards.
Fantastic. John, you are a phenomenal speaker, and thank you so much for giving us some encouragement. Even your Instagram followers there, your spend on
What's up?
social media,
Yeah.
tell them we say hi to
Oh,
you.
well. Oh, wait, you want to say hi?
Oh, sure. Oh, hello, everybody. There we go. I wish you could see the several politics. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. We could go on for hours on end because there's so much to explore. But a big thank you to John Sane, phenomenal speaker and futurist and trend analyst.